The SEC just voluntarily dismissed the most important cybersecurity lawsuit in history. And if you're a chief information security officer anywhere in the world, you probably just exhaled for the first time in 2 years. This isn't just legal news. This decision could determine whether cybersecurity professionals become heroes or scapegoats when nation-state hackers attack their companies. Here's what's terrifying about this case. The SEC wasn't going after the Russian hackers who actually committed the crime. They were going after the victims. SolarWinds and their CISO, Tim Brown, were facing personal liability for being targeted by one of the most sophisticated cyber espionage operations in history. And if this case had succeeded, it would have fundamentally changed cybersecurity forever. No one would want to be a CISO if you could face prison time when foreign intelligence services hack your company. Let me take you back to December 2020, when the cybersecurity world discovered something that still gives experts nightmares. Russian state-sponsored hackers had compromised SolarWinds Orion software, a network monitoring tool used by 33,000 customers worldwide. But this wasn't just any hack. They turned SolarWinds into a digital Trojan horse. The attackers spent months inside SolarWinds systems, carefully crafting malicious code that would be distributed through legitimate software updates. When customers installed what they thought were security patches, they were actually installing Russian spyware. The victim list reads like a who's who of American power: Microsoft, Intel, Cisco, the Departments of Treasury, Justice, Defense, and Energy. Even parts of the Pentagon and nuclear weapons infrastructure were compromised. This was digital Pearl Harbor, a supply chain attack so sophisticated that it took 9 months to discover, and by then, the Russians had been reading America's secrets like a morning newspaper. So naturally, the SEC decided to sue the victims. In October 2023, they filed charges against SolarWinds and CISO Tim Brown, claiming they misled investors about their cybersecurity practices. The SEC's argument was essentially this: you knew your security wasn't perfect, but you told investors it was good enough. When you got hacked, that proved you were lying. But here's where it gets absurd. They were holding SolarWinds accountable for not predicting and preventing an attack by the SVR, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service. That's like suing a bank for getting robbed by the CIA. The cybersecurity community erupted. Dozens of security leaders signed open letters saying this case would destroy the profession. Who would want to be a CISO if you could face personal criminal liability for being the victim of a nation-state attack? This case sent shockwaves through every boardroom in America. CISOs started lawyering up, not because they were criminals, but because they might become scapegoats. Think about the impossible position this created. You're a CISO defending against nation-state attackers with billion-dollar budgets and zero legal constraints. But if they succeed, you might go to prison for inadequate disclosure. The message was clear. In the SEC's world, there's no such thing as being a victim of cybercrime. There's only failure to prevent cybercrime, and that's apparently a securities violation. Security professionals started asking, should I downplay our security capabilities to avoid liability? Should I overdisclose every possible vulnerability? The case was creating perverse incentives that would actually make companies less secure. But here's what the SEC didn't count on: federal judges who actually understand technology. Last year, Judge Paul Engelmeyer dismissed most of the claims, calling them legally insufficient. The judge essentially said you can't hold someone liable for being the victim of an unprecedented attack by a foreign intelligence service. It was a rare moment of sanity in an insane case. And now, on November 20th, the SEC has voluntarily dismissed the entire case. They're walking away after wasting 2 years and millions of taxpayer dollars on a fundamentally flawed legal theory. SolarWinds called it a welcome vindication. But the damage was already done. 2 years of uncertainty, legal fees, and a chilling effect on the entire cybersecurity profession. This dismissal is huge for every CISO, security professional, and company dealing with cyber threats. It establishes a crucial precedent. You can't be held legally liable for being the victim of sophisticated nation-state attacks. But here's the catch. The SEC noted this doesn't necessarily reflect their position on future cases. Translation: we're dropping this one, but we might try again with a different approach. The cybersecurity community isn't celebrating yet. They know the SEC could come back with new theories, new cases, new ways to criminalize being a victim of cybercrime. And here's what's really concerning. While the SEC was busy suing victims, the actual Russian hackers are still out there, probably planning their next supply chain attack. We're prosecuting the wrong people. This case reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how cybersecurity works in the real world. Perfect security doesn't exist. It's about managing risk, not eliminating it. When nation-state attackers with unlimited resources target your company, the question isn't if you'll be breached. It's when and how quickly can you detect and respond. The SolarWinds dismissal sends the right message. Companies and security professionals shouldn't face legal liability for being victims of sophisticated attacks they couldn't reasonably prevent. The SEC's retreat on SolarWinds is a victory for common sense and cybersecurity professionals everywhere. But the war isn't over. Regulators are still figuring out how to handle corporate cybersecurity failures. Next week, I'm covering how Europol just dismantled 3 major cybercrime operations in a single coordinated strike, and why the takedown of the Radamanthys infostealer is bigger than you think. Subscribe because the intersection of law and cybersecurity is getting more complex every day. Hit that notification bell. Your legal liability might depend on staying informed.